Art Nouveau, and what are the typical features?
Art Nouveau is very much nature. I would say that mostly the inspiration comes from nature in both the architecture, in the arts, and all kinds of objects that they made in this period. And also the totality is important in Art Nouveau. That you go in, you see a building from the outside, and you go inside and you're still kind of in the same atmosphere that you met outside. So that's very typical. And also the organic, the way everything is, like the curved lines and yeah, beauty in everything, as they say. Yeah.
What would you say the difference between Art Nouveau in cities like Ålesund and cities like Barcelona are?
Oh, I think there is a huge difference. Barcelona is a very big city and Ålesund is a very small town. And Ålesund is quite simple Art Nouveau. We call it Jugendstil. And the Art Nouveau in Southern Europe, it tends to be more elaborate, with more decorations. Nature in the south of Europe, you see the flowers and the plants that you find in the southern Europe on the facades, for example, or even on cutlery, on glassware, and so on. And in the northern countries, you find the same, but of course you find the Norwegian plants and so on, but much simpler, much. You know, Ålesund was not a very rich city, so of course it's more simple, less decorative, might say.
How would you describe Art Nouveau in Ålesund?
I would describe the Art Nouveau in Ålesund as very interesting, because Ålesund burnt down in 1904, and in 1905 Norway became an independent country. So you can see that the architecture in Ålesund is very much a national project. So that's why we see so many features from the houses. Or the boats built by the Vikings in the Middle Ages. We see the wood carvings. They are very much inspired by the Viking ornamentations, the Norse ornamentation, and the stave churches. But also we see that the architects, they must have been traveling around. They must have been part of some communication system. So we see also inspiration from the southern parts of Europe, and also of course Germany and Austria, where many of these architects studied.
The fire in Ålesund in 1904 was a very important event in the city's history. How do you think the development of the city would have been without it?
Oh, that's a very it's a fun question, because of course the fire in Ålesund, every 23rd of January people in Ålesund, they walk around, they wander around in the city to commemorate this event. But how would Ålesund be without the fire? You know, Ålesund was a wooden town before the fire, so maybe some of the wooden buildings would still be in the city center. Today it's all stone buildings. And of course we wouldn't have had the Art Nouveau city label, if you would call it that, because of course then the history would have continued and we would have built new houses, and some were torn down, and a mix of styles and mix of different periods in architecture. It could have been a very interesting city, but not an Art Nouveau city as we have today.
What are your thoughts about Art Nouveau and how is Art Nouveau important today?
Oh, I would say that Art Nouveau is, it's first thing is of course that Art Nouveau for Ålesund and even in other places in Europe is important because it tells us about our history. I think Art Nouveau also can give us something, give people who live today something. For example, the ecological thought. It's important to take care of nature and to look at nature, and it's important to well, beauty is important because Art Nouveau is very much about beauty in everything, and I think it has a very strong psychological impact on people.